This podcast, The Good, the Bad and the Vagina, is brought to you by me, Tess Lovely, a retired midwife, birth keeper, mother and sovereign woman. The views shared are my own and those of my guests. If something doesn't resonate, release it. It's not meant to upset or offend. If you feel discomfort, please seek support for your own healing. If you don't like what you hear, don't listen. This space honours truth, freedom and expression, protected under the rights to free speech. Welcome to The Good, the Bad and the Vagina. Let's get started. Hello, Shellie. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Tess. How are you? It's so lovely to see you and speak with you.
Oh, it's so lovely. I'm so honoured to have you on here, really am. So thank you so much for agreeing to this. And obviously I follow you and Kemi on your Birth and Tethered, and you are my go-to recommendation for all mums to listen to, because I think what you two have together is amazing. And I love how much of a nerd you are.
Thanks.
You're welcome. And how much you read and research. I just want you to introduce yourself, say what you are, what you do, and all the rest of it, and then we'll just see how the conversation flows from there.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Well, hi everybody. I'm Shellie. I am a long-time birth activist and birth worker. I am online as the Serenity Doula, so I've been a doula for over 20 years now, and I just kind of fell into it as people asking me to come and support them at their birth. When I was also working as an osteopath and a naturopath, so I have a background in holistic medicine. I'm no longer on a register as an osteopath. I haven't been for some years because I realised that I didn't really want to be on the register where, I just don't think it's that helpful. And I've had discussions on podcasts about why I don't think that is. On the Birthing Instincts podcast, had a conversation with Stu and Bliss about registers and how they can actually be quite dangerous and how they give a perceived safety that they don't actually provide. And yeah, I didn't really want to be a part of that. So stopped that a long time ago. All my patients called me a white witch anyway and said, well, we don't care what you are. I was still insured to do all the same things that I used to do, but I didn't have to pay the General Osteopathic Council £750 a year to call myself an osteopath. Actually, how much do you have to pay to say that you're a midwife? Is it quite a large fee for that to remain on the register for midwifery as well?
I think it's about 175 round there pounds.
Okay.
I don't know, because I've deregistered. I was like, you can have your pin back for the same reasons as you.
Yeah.
I think they write pretty things on the wall about how they're there to protect the public and women, and actually they're not. They're there to protect the organisation.
Yeah.
And they don't really give a flying fuck about the women. Because if they wholeheartedly did, then they would be taking massive action about the fact that the caesarean section rate is nearly 50% nationally. Yeah. They would be taking massive action about the induction rate and the fact that the maternal suicide rate has increased by 17% in 2 years. They would be on all of that. There would be uproar. They'd be in the front of the papers. They would be celebrating home births and all of the benefits that bring, and they don't. No. They support.
No, they're too busy. Too busy witch hunting doulas.
That's their latest, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how long have you been a doula?
Over 20 years now, but actually, I wasn't officially a doula. I didn't do a training for some years after that because I didn't really know it existed as a profession. I was just sort of doing it isolated, helping friends and family and patients, a lot of my osteopathic patients who were coming to me for pregnancy treatment and then, wanting support in birth and after birth, and often with medical appointments as well. So I've been a medical advocate really since I was a child. My sister had a genetic condition called cystic fibrosis. So I was her medical advocate for the whole of her life, going into hospitals, making sure that people understood her condition, making sure that she got adequate care, because it might not surprise you to hear, but often people don't really know what things are or what that entails. And so you often have to explain stuff like that. And in order to keep her safe, I used to go to hospital with her to make sure that she was treated well. So I've just kind of always done it my whole life. I think maybe I was made to be that way. I don't suffer fools gladly. I really am interested in how things work. And so I've always done research so that I can really understand things well. And that means that, I make a good advocate. I also am not bothered about standing up to people who, are perceived figures of authority. I had a bit of a tricky childhood, abusive parent, especially my father, who was an alcoholic. So when you've kind of stood up to a 20 plus stone drunk and stopped him beating up your brother and sister and mother when you're a child, obstetricians and midwives who don't like you because you're a doula don't really frighten me. So I'm quite happy to point out when things are not okay and hold a safe space for women and partners in their birth spaces, because I think that everybody deserves to be treated beautifully when they're pregnant, when they're having a baby, postpartum. I think that this amazing thing that our bodies do of growing entire humans and birthing them and then nourishing them deserves a huge amount of reverence. And unfortunately, that's been lost in the system. In fact, probably never was in the system, to be honest. If we kind of really look back at it, that reverence was beaten out of us, because the church didn't like it. They didn't like women's power. They didn't like women gathering together and, enjoying the power of birth, the camaraderie, the community of it, being all together, supporting one another. It's dangerous for women to get together and realize that they are amazing and they're powerful. And so whatever little way that I can help to just sprinkle little bits of that, I always have my whole life. And I don't think I'll ever stop, quite honestly.
No,
stuck with me forever.
I watch and I listen to the things that you do, and I'm just in awe of the way that you address things and that you research. Looking back at the witch wound, which is what you were talking about, how prevalent it is still displayed in the modern world today. Because when the patriotic energy came over and it was taken over, when the church decided that it was going to get rid of the wise women and the crones within the villages. They initially went around killing all the elderly women.
Yeah, of course.
That's why women tried to make themselves look younger, so they weren't targeted. And that's still, you look around how women are still trying to make themselves look younger on a daily basis. And that's how that ancestral wound is still travelling through us.
Yeah. Yeah, only maidens are valuable, aren't they? Men don't like perimenopausal and postmenopausal women because our estrogen goes down. We don't give a shit anymore about looking after and pandering to their feelings and looking after them. We're a bit like, yeah, okay, we've done that all of our lives. Now we're actually going to realize how amazing we are and speak about it and try and empower other women to feel that before they've gone through their whole life, and and then finally get to that point and help people realize it younger. And that's, again, just dangerous to the patriarchy, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's interesting that a lot of midwives that like myself, I really believed I was a genuinely woman midwife, and then hit the menopause, and I was quite outspoken before, but clearly got more outspoken, and it just got me into a lot of trouble. It was definitely, fuck it, I don't care anymore.
Yeah, I like that. I like that kind of trouble. I've always liked that kind of trouble. So, oh dear, the world's in for a lot more trouble as I hit that phase of my life.
Welcome aboard. It's lovely. You're just like, nah.
Yeah. I've had that this week, actually. I've had a lot of people in comments where I've shared some statistics, well-known statistics about the stillbirth rates through weeks. And, I've had 3 or 4 midwives in my comments now going, share your references. And I was like, well, I shared the references in my podcast, and I have all of the references that I read, all of the papers that I read for every episode are linked in a PDF. But that PDF I have behind our paywall, and it's not a massive paywall. It's £10 a month for people to get the PDF resources, all of the links to all of the resources that we use in terms of papers and things that are read. And it means that people get to hang out with me and Kemi on Zoom for an hour each month to have a chat about the world and life and, you know, whatever's come up for people in birth work. Maybe someone's been at a tough birth and we can hold a safe space and a circle for them. And yeah, people get really fighting, well, you should share it. You're not a professional if you don't share it. And I'm like, I am sharing it. What I'm doing is holding a boundary here to say, this week, I've done enough free hours. I've given enough free information. And if people want that information, they can Google it themselves. Or if they want the easy clickable link, they can have it. But, you know, I'm valuing my time here. So
I think it's because the NHS provide everything for free. So there's this unwritten law that everything should be given. Anything related around childbirth should be given free. But what people aren't realising is how much of a hoodwink that is. You know, like there's a saying, isn't there? If somebody gives you something for nothing, see how much it's going to cost you. So in terms of the NHS care that's given to you freely, free at the point of contact, it's limited in, it's like we're giving you this information because we're going to steer you down this pathway that we want you to go down. Don't look anywhere else. I mean, that's one of the things that they say to women quite early on in their pregnancy. Only go on a reputable NHS website for your information. Well, all of that information on there is just affirming your crap care.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of it isn't evidence-based, I can tell you that. I was on an MVP, Maternity Voices Partnership, for about 5 minutes before they threw me off. You know, honestly, it was about 5 minutes because they wanted to give this leaflet, this like handout leaflet to women about induction. And they're like, oh, we just want you to check the wording, you know, and see what the MVP thinks of it. And, you know, most of the people were new mothers on there, had no idea what induction meant, had only read what the NHS website says about induction, and so didn't really have a clue. Perhaps have been through one, not really sure. Anyway, they put things like, your placenta will begin to fail after 41 weeks. And this will be done to you. You will come to the hospital and the doctor or midwife will do this, and then they will do this, and then they will do this. And I was like, no, this isn't okay. First of all, there is no evidence that the placenta is going to fail. Where is that evidence? You cannot just state things as if they're fact without citing evidence. And I know there's no evidence because it doesn't exist. So let's not just make up false things. And I was like, and then secondly, you are saying that we are offering this. We will offer a vaginal examination. We will offer to do this. Not this will be done to you and you will shut up and put up. It's not okay. And they were like, oh, we don't want you on the MVP. We want only service users' voices. And I was like, well, I was a service user because I am a mother. I just happen to be a service user with experience and understanding of the law and medical procedures. And you don't want me there. Yeah, we don't want you there because you know too much. You're not just saying yes to all the nonsense that we want to put out to coerce women. Go away. You're too much like hard work.
Honestly, you couldn't make up some of the shit, could you? I can remember once a registrar, she's now a consultant, and it was like her interim period from going from a registrar to a consultant, coming pounding into the changing room at work, go, have you heard the news? And I, like, really excited she was. And I was like, no. And she went, there's a study that's come out and it says there's absolutely no difference in outcomes if you induce a woman at 40 weeks or 39 weeks, first-time mums. And I went, but isn't that like comparing a shit show to a shit show? Of course there's no difference. Like, if you're going to do something, then do it properly. Don't just we've got a shit show here, so we can just compare this shit show to this shit show. Oh, look, they're the same.
they continue to do that. This is what they did in the Big Baby trial. It's what they did in the Arrive trial. It's let's compare induction at this date to induction at a later date. And then when they say there's no difference between an induction at a certain period and expectant management, what they're actually saying is there's no difference between induction at this date and induction at this date, exactly as you've just said. Not that there's no difference between induction here and waiting. And, you know, that was seen in the Big Baby trial. If you know, they kind of set out this propaganda like there was a difference when they fudged the data, but the difference wasn't significant between the amount of shoulder dystocia that was happening. But there were differences that were more significant that they just hid sort of in the appendices about the number of babies in NICU, the amount of antibiotics given to babies that were induced, and the differences were more significant. And also, they were comparing induction with 100% induction with a 70% induction rate. So imagine if they had actually been comparing induction with watchful waiting, how much bigger those differences would have been.
Right. It's crazy. But there's always some money to be made out. I always say to women now, the minute you're pregnant, all they can see is this like big cloud of pound signs above your head, and according to your body mass index. Oh, that's a big pound sign.
Age. Too old. Oh, you're too brown, or you're too black. Oh, yeah.
I would have been an obstetrician's delight if I skipped into their room at 45 on my 5th pregnancy with my big babies that I'd had.
Keeled over. Oh! Let's sign you up for an operative birth now.
Yeah, as it was, I was like 26 days overdue when I finally went into labour and had my lovely home birth physiologically at home, in 2 hours.
It's not true. You would have been pregnant forever. Couldn't possibly have birthed your baby naturally without any interference. What?
I did love your podcast that you and Kemi did about stone pregnancy.
That's
the only woman that's been evidently pregnant forever.
Yeah, only 300 cases have ever existed of that in the world. Yeah. And it only happens when the baby's not in the uterus.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the thing that people just don't know about, isn't it?
Yeah. Otherwise, you can't be pregnant forever.
No, there's so much fear surrounding childbirth. It's really difficult how to navigate women through that process. Even with my kids, say they have something like they didn't do particularly well with their spellings at school, like, I only got 5 out of 10, and they'd be really upset about it. I knew that I would then have to say like 7 or 8 really positive things about what they did well to kind of re-regulate their central nervous system. And when women are going into well-meaning, beautiful midwives who are trying their best but having to fit within a system, it's just a teaspoon of fear. And how that lands on that woman, it's so hard then to unpick that, because it's such a loud voice, that outside noise.
Yeah, I think it's 100-fold or something like that, isn't it? When you have a negative comment, you actually need 100 positive ones to help start to redress the balance of that. And honestly, Kemi and I have spoken about this a bit on the Untethered podcast about what do you need appointments for? What are they actually giving you? Are they serving you? And if they're not serving you, why are you going? It's from that innate fear that you feel that you have to hand your authority over to somebody else, but you don't. The things that are checked by a midwife, most of them you can check at home yourself. You can check. You can keep an eye on your blood pressure. And make sure it's okay.
For some women, it's a point where, because women have been minimalised in society so much, that I feel that sometimes the engagement with care is a point where they're able to be spoken about freely. I know that sounds really bizarre, but I think that they can say things like, oh, I've got a midwife appointment. Oh, the midwife said this, or the midwife said that. Because women are not very good about saying, my pregnancy is going really well and I'm really happy and I'm enjoying the fact that I'm growing and my baby's moving. It has to be intercepted by this shroud of medical kind of authority. And it's so sad that it's become like that for women.
Yeah, that we're not allowed to celebrate ourselves and how amazing we are. that it has to be someone else said something. Yeah, and the other thing is that it is more comfortable for most people to hand their authority over to someone else. You know, we've been taught from a young age to sit still, be quiet, and do what we're told by outside authorities. So to take authority over your own body, to say, no, I feel well, I feel in communication with my baby, everything is good, you know, I'm keeping an eye on my own blood pressure, I feel happy, I don't feel the need for an appointment, actually, because when I go in, it's all fear, fear, fear. You know, you've got to be induced, and let's put our fingers up there and give you a sweep. It's not an induction, but it is an induction. You know, all this kind of pressure that makes you stressed out and not enjoy it, and actually is quite detrimental to your long-term mental health and well-being, and that of your baby. I mean, we've spoken about that in a podcast that's coming out soon, about how stress in the latter part of pregnancy is having significant impacts on children, and personality traits, you know, and anxiety disorders are on a massive increase in children, as being seen, you know, in 5 years of age. It's not just babies that it makes more irritable, more frightened, more nervous. It continues because if you are in a fear state constantly at the end of your pregnancy, your body is setting up epigenetic programming to make your baby think they're coming into a stressful environment. So it makes them more hypervigilant, it makes them more jumpy, it makes them feel that they need to be more alert for danger. And that, you know, that's then tricky in the current society as we have it. And kind of trying to separate mothers and babies, trying to say that co-sleeping isn't the safest thing to do, you know, trying to say you shouldn't be holding your baby all the time and carrying them around skin to skin, you know, it's all like separate. You know, it's all to do with removing this power from women and children. And we're seeing the effects on the world of it happening. So stripping it right back to trying to bring power back to women is so important. You know, it is the most important work, I think, really, that there is on the planet, because we give birth to everybody. And if everybody gave birth to everybody in a loving, safe, held space where people felt empowered and amazing and that they could do it, the world would change really within a generation. As we've seen that with the fear, building the fear, you know, we've had that change in a negative direction. And now, you know, just a few generations ago, grandparents were birthing at home. That's basically gone now. Very few people do it. And there's a little resurgence, which I'm very hopeful about, a little bit of sort of people realizing, and social media is wonderful for that, for sharing information and stories and experiences. And it's helping people to be more held to account to what they're doing in institutions. But it's a big battle. It's a big uphill battle.
I think as well, for me, it's become really apparent that the only way women are now achieving that sort of home birthy thing is by having doulas. 40% of women will book at the beginning of their pregnancy, be considering having a home birth. Less than 1% are achieving that.
Yeah.
And it's along on that journey, they're sliced into risk categories. So if you've got a population, which is a bit shocking that only 40% of them are achievable to be at the beginning of a pregnancy perceived as fit and well enough to be having a home birth, like that blows my head away anyway.
Yeah.
So out of that 40%, then there's a slice gone off for this and a slice gone off for that, and then a slice for this. And then as they get to 36 weeks, where there's still a lot of them have got this perceived idea that they're actually going to be going for this home birth, and it's suddenly your baby's too big, your baby's too small. One of those appointments will be by a midwife who hasn't seen you before, so the measurement will be changed. Then there's the reduced fetal movement thing. Then you can't go over your due date. There's all these other things that suddenly start cropping in and that keep taking away the slices. And then let's just say, finally, you beautiful angel, you've got to the end of your pregnancy, your term plus 10 and gone into spontaneous labour before your induction date. And you ring at the hospital going, oh, I'm in labour, I'm having a home birth again. Oh, we've got nobody available. Damn it!
Yeah, they just make the hoops that you have to jump through smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And I think what women need to realise is you don't have to jump through the hoops. Stop trying to jump through the hoops. Stop it.
Yeah, I think that's what I found being now. Obviously, I handed in my PIN because I couldn't bide by the shit that the NMC were saying. And being the doula, what I've noticed is women that I'm working with are all wanting doula there, because in a way it gives them that security. If they want midwives there in the back of their head, they think that that's what they need. And then the last minute, the midwife isn't going to come. But then they feel brave enough and strong enough to stay in their own space and do what they're doing because they've gone so much in themselves, like gone to birth within. That's why I call my thing birth from within, because I think that's where women need to go. They need to go inside into their own power and birth in here. And all this outside noise means nothing. And I think that's what doulas and really excellent midwives will do, will hold that space to enable women just to go, I can do this. I'm all right. I've got this.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favourite stories from a doula friend of mine was when she was birthing twins. And it was before she was a doula, so she didn't really know much about it, but knew that she wanted to birth her twins vaginally. And she birthed one twin fine, and then she was in the process of birthing the second twin. And, of course, the obstetrician was panicking, wanted to come in, and was like coming in to go, we're going to need to do something now. And she just literally just put her hand up on the obstetrician's face and just pushed them away. Just, no, thank you, off you go, and just birthed her baby. And it's one of my favorite stories. Like, no, push the noise away. And the people that have the best births that I have seen, I've been doing this a long time. I've seen a lot of different kinds of births. I've been and worked in a lot of different hospitals because I move around. I'm not always in the same hospital. So I've seen them all. And they're all pretty much of a muchness, to be honest. And if you listen to the noise, if you let it seep in, it undermines your confidence. If you are not coming out from appointment feeling more confident, more looking forward to your birth, more looking forward to being a parent, that person is not serving you in your pregnancy. So don't feel that you need to speak to them again. Find people that can help build you up and help you find that power from within yourself and help you to realize that you do not need anybody else to birth your baby. You literally do not need anybody else to birth your baby. And in every situation where I've had somebody who has needed somebody there, they have known intuitively and said, I need some help here.
Yeah, I agree with you. Do you know, I absolutely agree with you 100%. And I see it all the time. I always say to women when I meet them now, the outside noise is really loud. But when you get into the middle of that noise, there'll be a whisper. And that whisper is the noise, it's the thing that you need to listen to. That's the loudest intuitive voice that you need to hear, because it is the whisper. This outside noise is just the distraction, isn't it? That the medical establishment have put in place. It's the little whisper that says everything is okay.
Yeah, that connection to the baby. When people are in tune with the body, they know their baby's fine. I know my baby's fine. Yeah. I know all is okay. I've just been supporting a mum free birthing, and I was just supporting her over the phone. It was a remote person that I was looking after, so I wasn't there. And it is much more difficult supporting people when you're not in the room and you're not looking and seeing how things are. And you do sit there thinking, oh, I hope they're okay. And there are maybe long periods of time where they're not communicating with you because they're in the throes of things. They might be really, really uncomfortable, and you can't give hands-on reassurance, or you can give them tips and things like that, but it is a much more difficult place to sit. And sitting there, I almost have to take a breath and say, okay, how are you feeling? Are you connecting in with the baby? How's the baby moving? Are you and the baby feeling okay? Are you just putting one foot in front of the other? We could try this, that might help. But it's that bringing back to that connection that, this is tough. I've been doing this one night, 2 nights in a row, and it doesn't seem to be getting any further. But I have this innate knowing that actually me and the baby are okay. And me saying, sometimes these things take time. Sometimes actually your labour might kickstart, your waters might go because the baby's pushed out in an awkward position just before they're ready to go, actually, and you haven't quite got enough oxytocin receptor sensitivity yet. And so you might get contractions only in the nighttime, and then in the day they peter out because you've not got the melatonin helping with the synergistic, fueling of that oxytocin cycle. I was like, maybe tonight will be the night, where things ramp up a little bit more, or maybe it will be the next night, and as long as you're feeling well and you're feeling everything's okay, that it's fine. But it is bringing back to that, what's your intuition telling you? What's your baby saying to you? What are you feeling? What can we do to help you in this moment? What is making you feel overwhelmed? And sometimes it might be that they've got some back pain going on as well, or they've got, they're feeling sick. They're really sick because they're throwing up with contractions. So what we could do is just try and take off a bit of that sensory overwhelm. Okay, so maybe let's sniff some peppermint oil, and that can reduce the nausea a little bit. Maybe you can use a hot water bottle or a TENS machine to take that back pain down a little bit. And then, then it helps. Okay, things are more manageable now. Because when you're not there, you're like, oh, she's sounding really in pain. She's struggling. It's been going on 2 nights. Is she okay? And if you're not careful, that worry of, she's free birthing and it's a feedback and there's nobody there. Is she going to be all right? Kind of, it can escalate. But I find that if I'm also then able to, let's tune back into what you're feeling. Tell me what it is. Tell me what's happening. Tell me what's going on for you. And that her own intuition then just calms the whole thing down. Like, this is what's overwhelming me in this moment. Okay, what practical tools can we do to help reduce those things? And then half an hour later, you get a message saying, oh my goodness, peppermint oil, hot water bottle, TENS machine, worked like a charm. I can relax now. I'm actually able not to tense through and shout through the contractions. I'm going to try and have a little snooze.
Yeah. I had that recently with a free birth. She was amazing. I mean, it went on for like 3 or 4 nights. And I went, like they rang me and said, oh, it's all started. And I carried on with my day as normal. And then they rang me I'd gone to visit a friend, and they rang me around 9:30 and said, oh, we're just going to settle down for the evening. And I was like, oh, excellent, I'll go to bed. They rang me an hour later. And I was like, oh, okay. So I got up and I went over. And I knew as soon as I got in, I thought, okay, we're doing a long rotation, baby. This is about management here. How are we going to cope with this? So I said to the guy, you need to go to bed. And he was like, what? And I said, yeah. I said, you've got to do the day shift. I'll do the night shift.
Yeah. Let's tag team here. This is going to be a long one.
So he went off to bed and I stayed with her. And then in the morning, I was like, I need to go home because obviously I've got kids and I went home. They looked a bit like, oh, you're abandoning us. And I'd kind of done loads of talking around it. Anyway, he did the sort of day, and then I went back over and I was like, okay, so we're going to be doing this again. How about you bring in some singers? We had singers in and drummers, and then we did another night. I went to bed, and then the next day it was like definitely heating up. And at one point, when she really got going into the throes of labour, and I was like, right, now we're in business, it's rotated, she was like, I think I want to be examined. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Now, obviously, I know from experience what that generally means. So I was like, let's explore this a little bit then. You've done a whole pregnancy, all trusting your own self. And what's this little bit of doubt and fear that's sort of creeping in now? What's kind of triggering that for you? And she went, I don't know, I just don't think I can do this anymore. And I said, but I think you're so incredibly strong. You will be able to dig out of the depths of anywhere because you're a woman and you'll do anything for your baby. And we could just try maybe getting in the pool or doing something like that. And then she was like, back on it. She had a beautiful birth. It was lovely. I mean, it was a long haul, but you think if she'd have been in the system, they'd have said, oh, no progress. You're not doing it quick enough. We need to give you a drip of something.
Yeah.
But it was, she had a beautiful birth. You just think us women are just so incredibly strong and beautiful and amazing. And we can just dig so much deeper each time we're asked to do that.
Yeah, it's birth is a rite of passage, isn't it? And the tough things in labour teach us really this lesson of how much strength that we have, so that then when our toddlers are testing us and we're like, I can't do this, there's this core memory, this core knowing in our being that, hold on a second, I did all of that hard stuff in labour. I was up those nights. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I was being sick. I was pooing myself at points, and I managed it. I did it, and I made that whole human, and I birthed that whole human, and I've nourished that whole human to this point. And that confidence that doing, managing with the labour, of being celebrated when you do it by people, of being in awe of how amazing you are to do it, is so important for parenting. And I see it in parents, how much more confident they are in parenting when they have had a physiological birth, when it hasn't been interfered with, when the hormones haven't been messed with, when they haven't had synthetic oxytocin pumped in, when their prolactin is at the level it should be, when their oxytocin is at the level it should be. They're making fundamental differences to how people are able to parent by intervening, by augmenting labours with synthetic oxytocin, by starting inductions. It completely fundamentally changes how you feel about being a parent. And it's not a small thing. In studies, it's like talked about, okay, well, it affects your bonding. And people are like, what does that even mean? I can cuddle my baby and I'll build up the bonding. It's like, no, this fundamentally changes how much oxytocin is released from your brain, how much oxytocin your baby gets. Their first experience of falling in love and bonding with you is fundamentally altered by choosing an induction. So it's not something to choose lightly. It should only be used when there is a medical necessity, when one or both of your lives is at risk, really, because it affects the rest of your lives forever. It does. And if we're not telling women that, we're really denying them proper informed consent for choosing whether they want to have it or not. It's not the same. And it's not the same, not just for your pregnancy and not for your birth and your labor and birth experience, but it's not the same forever. Makes big differences. It's really important that women are told that and understand that. But I think most medical personnel don't know that. They're not aware of it. They haven't studied the physiology around it. They don't appreciate it.
They're not taught it at all. At all. When I did my training, we were taught physiology. I reckon when I then started having students, there was no way they were taught physiology. No way. I could just tell by the language that they were using. And they're just taught obstetric nursing now. They get given these charts that have red, yellow and green on them, and everybody has to fit in the green. And if they don't fit in the green or they trigger 2 of the yellow, then it's not your choice or decision what happens. You can refer it on, and you don't want to be responsible for anything, so you just keep referring. There's a thing, isn't there? Pass the Dutchie pan the left-hand side, and that's what it reminds me of.
Not my responsibility. Not my responsibility. Yeah.
What's that game that kids play? Pass the parcel.
Yeah, except there's no sweets inside the wrappers. Yeah. Just a pile of shit in each layer, unfortunately. Yeah, gets worse and worse as you pass it on. Yeah, it's funny that thing of responsibility, isn't it? And I think it's one of the biggest dangers in the way medical care is nowadays, that people are so frightened of litigation or getting thrown under the bus or being in trouble. It's a really hideous place for midwives to be, because they know that their doctors will try and throw them under their bus. A lot of their colleagues will probably try and throw them under the bus. The NMC will probably try and throw them under the bus. There is nobody there trying to help and protect them. They don't have a connection with women because there's no continuity of care. So the woman isn't going to stand up for them. And if someone else says, oh, it's the midwife's fault, they're going to agree with that. It's a really hideous place to sit. And, I find it funny sometimes when people go, oh, you want to be a midwife, because they think I'm giving medical advice, when actually I'm just providing information that I've read in a research paper. I'm like, no, I would not want to be a midwife ever. I think it's a terrible, terrible position to be in right now. You are
right
but you're between a rock and a hard place as a midwife in the current maternity climate. It's not a nice place to be unless you can be independently caring for a woman, and giving continuity of care. Then it's a wonderful job until you have to transfer into a hospital when it's not so wonderful.
I have been an independent midwife in the past, and when I was an independent midwife, I lived it. I really enjoyed it. But then they brought in insurance, and I knew once they started messing around with this sort of the insurance the way that they were, I thought, this isn't about insuring and protecting us. This is about how can we beat you if you now have to conform to what we want you to do. And that's not what being an independent midwife was about for me. It was about hearing and seeing the women and giving them and providing them with what they want.
Yeah.
And I know an awful lot of independent midwives who were hauled over the NMC. So basically, if you're in the NHS as a midwife and there's a poor outcome, you have a little debrief and go back to work the next day if you're up for it. They don't really care too much. If you've got a shift and they want you in, you'll go in. and then everything will be unfolding. But if you're an independent midwife and there's a poor outcome, you're frozen. You cannot provide any more care to any people pending an investigation. And those investigations can take up to 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
You're constantly running in fact, you're in a way more fear driven, because that's your whole livelihood. If you've got 3 or 4 women that you're looking after in that whole year, I mean, yes, that's quite a substantial amount of money that they earn. They do earn good money as an independent midwife, but that still means that you can't carry on providing the care for the women that you've agreed to until that outcome has been resolved, even if it's nothing to do with you. If they decide that they're going to investigate and send it to the investigating authorities, it used to be HSIB, I can't remember who it is now. Anyway, there's all these, they just make these letters, don't they?
Yeah, insurance is it's a bit of a dangerous one, I think, really. And actually I have a friend who's a doula. She's been a doula a very long time and was caring for a couple. And there was a not great outcome with the baby. The baby wasn't very well and was in intensive care afterwards. And the family were upset with the doula, even though she'd provided care up to the point where the hospital told her she could no longer stay because they were going to theatre and that she wouldn't be allowed in afterwards. And so she was just sort of unceremoniously removed, as is often the way. Your support is just stopped, even though actually it would be very helpful to be in the theatre with a couple that are worried and things aren't going to plan. And so then it means that because the doula's not there, people in the medical situation can start to try to blame, because this kind of blame game. Oh, well, your doula, let's blame your doula for the poor outcome, even though what happened was definitely not the doula's fault. And she'd said several times, please explain to the family what this means and, go into detail about this, and please explain what the risks of this and that are, And then, so when she said to the family, no, I have provided a service according to my contract, that's, I don't really understand what you're trying to complain about. Everything is your choice. I've supported your choice. I've been there all the time that was allowed, etc., etc. They then went to sue the hospital about the poor outcome that happened, and then that was kind of ongoing. And then the doula received a call from a solicitor, and was saying, "What's your insurance?" And she said, I actually don't have insurance. She phoned them back and spoke to the solicitor and said, do you understand what a doula's role is? I don't have insurance because I am not actually doing anything that could cause a problem. I'm there supporting a woman in what she needs. I'm, mopping her brow. I'm providing her snacks. I'm giving her information that she can go and look at for herself. And so what he was trying to do was, if she'd had insurance, he would have tried, as this woman's solicitor, to sue the doula to get money back because she had insurance, not because she did anything wrong, but because it was a way to make revenue. And this is the trouble with insurance, that people think it's a bit like, having registration. People think that having insurance provides you safety, but actually it just makes lawyers money.
Yeah.
And it causes all of the issues that we see, the kind of defensive practice that's happening, that's causing far more harm than good, CTGs and the massive increase in cesarean sections and everything that's happened as a consequence of that. And that now they won't ever be removed, even though the evidence shows that they worsen outcomes and haven't improved anything, because of this whole fear around the litigation around things. It's very challenging.
Well, it's because if they weren't monitored, and you say the guideline says for them to be monitored, and they weren't monitored, then somebody's held accountable for that because she wasn't on the monitor. But the evidence is saying that being monitored actually is worse than not being monitored. And it's such an oxymoron, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, make it make sense. And I've had lots of people say, when I've shared information online, people are like, oh, you're a doula, you shouldn't be giving medical advice. I'm like, if you think that a reel on Instagram constitutes medical advice, I'm very concerned about what you expect medical advice to be, because for me, medical advice requires a consultation, individualized discussion, the pros and cons of things. It's not just someone providing information that is in a paper and explaining what's happening. That's not medical advice. And it's interesting. It's always medical professionals that question that and say you're giving medical advice. It's like, no, I'm not giving advice. I'm not telling people what to do. I'm giving them information so that they can make a decision that is their choice. And as a doula, I'm very clear about that with clients. And, I emphasize it a lot. It is your decision. You can decide what you want to decide. Here are the pros and cons of this thing that I'm aware of. Here are the pros and cons of this thing I'm aware of. Do you need any more information? Would you like me to provide you the resources so that you can go in and look at that and study it a little bit more yourself? What do you want to do here? And I think it's something that's kind of missing in training of medics and midwives, is that they don't really understand the law. Women have the right to make a decision with all of the information that they want. So that may be nothing. They might want to make the decision on the flip of a coin. They might want to pray to a god. They might want to ask their toddler. They might want to do a degree in a subject so that they really know everything to far higher detail than any of the rest of us could be expected to. But it is their choice. And this forcing people to listen to information that often is skewed very much towards going down a medicalized route rather than being really just and fair is actually causing more harm for women, because they feel pressured into something that they intuitively know is not right. But they feel like, if I choose the other thing and something bad happens, I'm never going to forgive myself. The number of times that I hear people say that. It's like, are you going to forgive yourself for believing and going against your intuition because somebody in a white coat said it? But the thing is, they can sue that person, can't they?
But nine times out of 10, they don't. This is the thing, because I'm working with a woman at the moment, only remotely supporting her, but there's so many errors and mistakes in her care that was given to her. And the outcome has been her son is quite severely affected. And so she's trying to she started the ball rolling in terms of DSARD and SARD and got all the information, and she's seen all this evidence, and they overdosed him when he was in special care. And now they've all started all the cover up over everything, saying, well, he could have had that dose. He's meant to have this dose, but that dose is all right. So it's okay. We didn't do any harm. I think they were treating her for something she was supposed to have, and she didn't even have it. And then the treatment that they gave them, they got the wrong amount, and then they're fudging it all. She said it's so hard, because actually, in order for them to acknowledge and admit they've made mistakes, they'll never do it. And that's why these cases take so long, and people just give up. I mean, she rings me every couple of months in bits, and I keep going, we know this is the journey. You have to stay in your lane. You're not fighting them with the law. You're fighting them with God's law. You're going to go and stand in court yourself and take them all on, because that's the only way. You've got your signed affidavit that cannot be argued with in court. They can't question you. That's the whole point of having a signed affidavit. Stay in your lane, stay in your lane. But she said every time they come up with something else that they kind of beat her down with. And it's like...
Yeah, it's hideous. The whole process is set up to prevent it from being successful, which I think is just really sad. If something has happened and a mother or baby are damaged to the point that they need help for the rest of their lives to cope with that, it shouldn't be this difficult 7 to 9 year long process where you're trying to get that support and help. I've supported people through medical legal claims as in a professional capacity as an osteopath in the past, and it's so long and it's so challenging, and people go with these no win no fee lawyers, and and then they get the bills through that obviously they don't have to pay if they don't win and they go through to court, but they're having to go through years and years and years of this re-traumatization of going over things, of going to appointments, of having this checked, of having that checked, of having to speak to people that had done the harm to, all this kind of ridiculous thing that is designed to put people off. But then they're getting these bills saying, you now owe the solicitor 40 grand, 50 grand, 60 grand, whatever it is. And so you have to see it through completion. And it was years of hell for the people that I was supporting that through, years and years of hell. And of course, just before the court date, the hospitals settle, because they don't want to go to court. Every time I've supported someone, it's been the day before the court date that they've settled out of court to keep their names out the press, to keep it out of the court. And
I I say to women, just go public with it now. I think that's the only way. We have to step outside of the law and go public, because nobody's winning these battles anyway. Just go and sing like a canary to the nation. This is what happened and this is how it happens. But because the solicitors say you mustn't talk about it, if you talk about it, it could jeopardise your case. And again, that's all just the underlying threats over everything. I think that's all just part of the system, isn't it?
Yeah.
The crooked system, which is really, really bad.
Yeah, and if it's, it's I love the recent case. It just made me so happy and excited that in Victoria in Australia, where the woman sued because she'd said on her birth plan she didn't want vaginal examination. She'd verbally said she didn't want vaginal examinations, and they coerced her, refused to get her care provider, refused to give her pain relief. All of these things are against the law. They're against human rights law. But medical professionals don't seem to know that, or don't seem to understand that, or don't seem to care, whatever it is. They police themselves, so why would they care normally? But she took them to court, and she went the whole way, and they paid out. The court demanded that they paid out, I think it was £275,000 £275,000 or something like that, or US dollars, I suppose, Oz dollars. And they had to admit that they assaulted her, that it was assault and battery, what was done to her. And I'm just hoping that landmark case sets a precedent so that other women do it. Because until this is the thing, in an institutional setting where you've got a hierarchy, unfortunately, a lot of people are driven not to be loving, caring humans. They're driven by the fear set up in the hierarchical system. It's a carrot and a stick situation. They fear punishment and they love getting gold stars. Oh, I'm midwife of the month. I'm so great for doing my job.
I never got that.
Whatever it is. Yeah, I'm sure you didn't, because you were actually doing your job being with women, but that doesn't help the institution, does it? So that wouldn't be celebrated. This is the thing. It's like mediocrity is celebrated rather than people who are actually doing a good job. And people, so because people only understand that carrot and stick, because they're in that hierarchical mentality, it does mean that the only thing that works is people suing and successfully suing and getting landmark cases. But unfortunately, what happens with things like that is often that they're twisted. Like we've seen that with the Montgomery and Lanarkshire case. Really, that should have been an excellent ruling for women, that they should be given the option to have a discussion about all the pros and cons of anything and be allowed to choose whatever feels right for them, irrelevant of whether the doctor thinks it's more dangerous or less dangerous for the baby or for them. It was a really big win for bodily autonomy. Unfortunately, what it's been twisted to in medical settings, and what a lot of people in medical settings think it means, is that they have to bombard women with all of the negative consequences of the thing that they don't want them to do, and just kind of gloss over the negative consequences of what they want to do. Yeah, and, make everything that the woman wants to do sound scary, and everything they want to do sound great, and like it's not a problem, and that's just a side effect. But we don't need to worry about that, because you're less likely to be sued because of a known consequence of a medical intervention than you are from not doing something. And so, unfortunately, that landmark ruling, though it should have made things a lot better for women, has in fact made things a lot worse. So it's always that concern, isn't it, with these wins, that it'll make things more
it's
tricky.
how it all gets twisted, isn't it? Really. And it's that interpretation. You can have two people sitting in a room hearing the same thing, but they both hear and see something completely different based on their own sort of backdrop, their own belief system. Like we said at the beginning about that registrar consultant running in and going, have you seen, like for her, that piece of evidence was absolutely amazing. But for me, it was a shit show compared to a shit show. That's what I love about you and Kemi, is that Kemi reminds me a little bit of me, in terms of like, I don't believe in any of that shit. And I've got a friend, Ellie, here, who she's like you, loves research, loves evidence, loves all of that. She calls me the oracle and I call her my encyclopedia.
Oh, I love that. Perfect combo.
And I think that's what you and Kemi are a bit like, aren't you? Like you go off and, have you read this then, Kemi? And she'll go, yeah. And then she comes out like me with all the yapping and jeffing around it.
Yeah, she's a secret nerd, really. I mean, she's got a great head for figures. So, I mean, probably to be honest, she'd be better at looking at research than I am. It's hard work for me to kind of go through stuff and try to portray it in a helpful way. But our deal was that I do the hard work and she rocks up and pulls faces and drops some F-bombs.
She's pretty good at that.
Which she is just at perfection. That's how we work, and it works well.
Yeah, I love it. It does work really, really well. It is a really, really, really great thing. I also listened to you on the podcast, as you said, about birth and instincts. I've been listening to quite a bit of those. In fact, I must say, I put some of it on so I fall asleep. I always think, I'm going to listen to that one, and then the next thing I know, I'm asleep. But I do put them on in the day as well when I'm tottering around. I do quite like the fact that in America they're challenging the status quo, but how different it is from state to state. And I think we're going to be similar around here, like in the UK, in not so long.
Yeah, often things go that way. And the thing is, it's really funny is that so I've been on the Birthing Instincts podcast a couple of times, and they think of the UK as being this midwifery-led great birth care. And they were really shocked when I was last on there to say, oh no, our outcomes are far worse than yours now when we're looking at the number of cesareans that are happening and the number of inductions. We've surpassed you. And really, I think that our mortality, especially maternal mortality, is the only reason it's not higher than in America is just because they have it's such a vast country, and basically all the states really are like different countries, and they have massive deserts of space where there is no maternity care, where you have to drive 3 or 4 hours to get to someone who can help you in an emergency. And if we had that in the UK and our current maternity system, I think our outcomes would be worse than they are in America.
Well, what they've done is in like Scotland, in the remote Hebrides of the Scottish, you have to move into the inland to have your baby. They've shut down the hospitals. So they have maternity care provided on the islands and to women, but I think it's like from 36 weeks, they have to move to the inland then to wait and have their babies. Why are you uprooting a whole family when you could just provide normal low risk care to them there?
Yeah.
But that's what they do. I think it's shocking,
Yeah.
Whereas in America, I suppose if you're out in the middle of nowhere, you stay in the middle of nowhere, or you move to a nearer hospital yourself. It's all to do with insurance and things there, though, isn't it? That's the difference. I think we're heading that way.
Yeah, and different states are. I mean, yeah, definitely in the UK, they're trying to get rid of the NHS. Really, they're trying to make it so it's in such a dire state that people have to pay for private care. It's obviously the intentional thing that's happening with governments, because there's no excuse for the disarray that the NHS is in at the moment, really. And they just paper the cracks and pretend like and go look over here and like struggle for funds around and make it look like we're doing this and fudge the figures and we've trained this many midwives. It's like, yeah, but you don't have any jobs available for those midwives, so what was the point in that?
I'll tell you something that happened down here recently. There's a jiu-jitsu club in the town centre, and opposite the jiu-jitsu club is an NHS screening unit. And it's a private unit. It's private, but it's got NHS written on it. And it's been set up to kind of reduce all the screening and things like chest x-rays and all the rest of it. Somebody in the jiu-jitsu session had a heart attack. So they all ran out. Fortunately for him, there was a nurse and a fireman and somebody else there. So they all started doing cardiac compressions and things on him. And somebody ran out to this NHS unit opposite and asked for the defibrillator. They wouldn't let it leave the building. They said no.
What?
They said no. Yeah. Said no. He only survived because there were 3 health professional people who knew how to administer cardiac and kept him alive until the ambulance arrived.
But for
But they
every
refused.
minute you don't have a defibrillator, you reduce your chance of
They
survival by
said it couldn't
10%.
leave the building.
Wow.
I know. And that's NHS, because it is an NHS, so that it's private. It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, and I know, and I hear it from clients that that care is conditioned upon things, and if they don't know their rights, they think, well, I can't have a home birth if I don't get signed off by the consultant, or I have to see the midwife to be able to do this, or I have to have a scan to be able to do that. And if you don't know that actually that's not the case and that it's illegal for them to do that, then you don't know, and you think that you can't have it. I mean, I had it recently with a woman this year that she wanted to have a home birth, and she hadn't had much antenatal care because she didn't want it. She'd had a 20-week scan, so she knew her placenta was out of the way. And she'd had a previous hemorrhage on an obstetric unit. I'd like to point out she was there cuddling her baby, and they didn't notice until there was blood pooling on the floor that she was bleeding. But they said, and then she said, no, I don't want to have vaginal examinations, because in the birth choices meeting, this consultant midwife was like, you have to have vaginal examinations. And she was like, well, I don't have to. And also, I'm not going to consent in advance to something. I'd like to be able to see on the day if I feel it's necessary or not, which is what she did in her previous births. And when she felt it was necessary, she had one, and then went to the hospital when it was needed, not before. And then she didn't want them sitting in the room staring at her, wanted them just next door and to come in if she needed them. And they were like, well, why do you even want midwives there? You're not letting us do our job. And I said, what do you think your job is? Vaginal examinations and listening to babies. So it's like, no, a midwife is being with women. You be with women, however that helps her to feel safe. If she wants you to listen to the baby, you do. If she says no, thank you, that is her autonomous right to say no. And they said, oh, we're going to go away and speak to the solicitors or da da da. And I was just a bit like, what are these people talking about? They were absolutely horrible to her, saying, well, how will you know? How will you know your baby's okay? How will you know if you need a vaginal examination? It's like, she's like, I don't even know how to answer that. And I was like, you don't have to answer that. It's not okay to ask you questions that way. Then they got this letter in black and white. They said to her, we will not support you. And then later on in the letter, just to be clear, if you call us in labour, we will not send midwives. They're running a home birth service, so it's against the law for them to deny her support in that way. And in no uncertain terms, I wrote back and said, well, this is where you're breaking the law. This is where you're breaching human rights law. You have to prove that you are providing more safety, which you're not. You're saying that she's safer in an obstetric unit. Well, she hemorrhaged there last time. And if she comes to an obstetric unit to birth her baby, her risk of hemorrhage is 2.5 times higher. Here's the data. Here's the paper that says that. So no. And then they were like, oh, well, ambulance times, it might be, trying to coerce her into worrying about ambulance times. I was like, that's just a form of coercion, which also is unacceptable and against your code of conduct. But funnily enough, they sent a letter back going, oh, okay, well, actually they got around it by saying, well, if you say that you wouldn't mind us listening in and you don't mind consenting to vaginal exams if they're needed, then it's okay, we will support you. It's like, that's what she said. And it's what she said previously. And I was like, they've said they're going to come. Do you want to fight it more or now or not? She's late in her pregnancy. She doesn't want to be having these fights. And she's like, no, I don't want to fight it now. We know they're coming. Well, when I phoned up, when she asked me to call them, they were like, there's nobody here. I was like, oh, okay, then never mind. They're like, we'll call you back. And I was like, okay, well, the baby will be here by the time you call back. And the baby was. Yeah. And then it was like, well, who delivered the baby? Was what the midwife was saying to me on the phone. I said, the mother birthed her baby. It's not a pizza. So she birthed her own baby. Yeah, but who delivered it? And I said, she birthed her own baby. I don't really understand your question. They need to get in the car and come here now. Who's going to deliver her placenta? I said, well, I imagine she'll just birth it like she did her baby. And I don't think it's a good idea really to be getting her in a car now whilst she's got a placenta inside her. We need her oxytocin to be high. We don't need her going out in the cold, and it's going to make it more dangerous, isn't it? So no, I don't think we'll be doing that. She hung up on me. Put the phone down. Anyway, the mother birthed her placenta, all was fine. Got them snuggled up in bed, and then we saw blue lights outside the window. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I better go down and get to the door before they wake up the children who were sleeping. And I opened the door and there's paramedics. So, hi. I was like, hello. Did you call us? No. Were you expecting us? No. They're like looking at their tablet. Has a baby just been born here? And I was like, yep. I said, the baby and a placenta, just fine. She's not actively bleeding. She's snuggled up in bed. They're feeding. They're skin to skin. They're perfectly fine. We didn't call an ambulance. She doesn't want an ambulance. She isn't intended to go to hospital. You know, I can go up and check if she'd like you to check on her. I'm not being obstructive, but you know, we haven't called you. You're not needed. You know, sorry, your time's been wasted. I went up to check. She didn't want them to come in, so they went away again. They were very nice about it, actually. I know some paramedics wouldn't be nice about it, but they were very nice about it. And then we're all snuggled up, eating some nice chocolate and peanut butter dates that I'd made, and I'm having a nice time. And she's got her dream of birthing her baby at home and then being snuggled up in her bed with her little toddler and her baby, which was just what she wanted. And she hadn't managed for her previous 2 births. So we were all having a little cry about how lovely that was and how they'd managed it. And then there was another knock at the door. And I was like, oh, gosh, it's like Piccadilly Circus around here. And 2 midwives turned up, interestingly. And I was like, oh, this midwife, they're very nice. They're being really respectful about her rights and not barging in. And they were waiting in the other room and say, I'll go and check if it's okay for you to come in and da-da-da. And they were being very kind. And then they were very good with their informed consent. And I was like, oh, this is unusual. So this is not what I normally see. I'm quite impressed by this behaviour. Turned out later that this midwife that was very confident and being very nice about all the things. She was the regional director of midwifery.
Oh.
Come out because of the letter that I had sent. The letter was, I'd written it as if it had come from the mother, but I think they all knew that it had come from me. And as I was showing them out later, she was all fine and, you know, she did all their checks and went away again. And she said, oh, can I speak to you a minute? And sort of shut the door behind the other midwife. She sort of said, went to shake my hand. And she said, oh, I'm really glad that everything was okay. And I said, yeah, I'm really glad everything was okay too, because I thought a few weeks ago that you were going to deny her care and leave me at home with a potential catastrophic hemorrhage and not, you know, provide your duty of care and break the law. So, yeah, I'm really glad everything went well too.
Do you know, I've recently had this where the hospital staff refused to care for a woman. They were going to employ an independent midwife, and the independent midwife said that their insurance wouldn't cover her, which I thought was a bit weird anyway.
Well, I tried to pass the buck onto an independent midwife.
Yeah, well, she had to pay like £6 or £8 or whatever an independent midwife would have cost. But they apparently a letter had circulated to say under no circumstances was anybody to go and support this woman in her choice of home birth because she was seen as high risk. And I was gobsmacked by that. And I was like, what astounds me in all of that is it's like they want to cherry pick to protect themselves. And actually the vulnerable women that need that care, they make it such a drama for them that they almost create this self-fulfilling prophecy or that fear that they feed them.
Yeah.
You know, I can remember a woman once that she was a VBAC, one in a home birth, and she had a big baby, and they said that she'd have a shoulder dystocia, and they went on and on and on and on about this. You know, that school thing that they do where you see your midwife, then you see the next senior more midwife, then the next senior. And I kept saying,
a very naughty girl, you need to see someone more senior to tell you what for.
I said, you've got to stop harassing this woman because she will withdraw from care. She will totally withdraw. And in the end, she did. She withdrew from care. Didn't want anything to do with any of them. She went into labour. She rang them. They went. And of course, when they arrived, the baby was well and truly on its way. She ended up with a shoulder dystocia. But that's because when they arrived, she froze. You know, like her body just kind of went into... and then they were all moaning about it afterwards, going, we told her so, we told her. And I said, you lot created that scenario. Every single one of you created that scenario because you didn't trust her to trust herself. And had you trusted her to trust herself, she would have known exactly what to do in that moment and there would have been no shoulders stuck. She would have naturally moved herself away, but she was like a rabbit caught in headlights when you lot walked through the door. She didn't know what to do. Because you were a level of authority coming in and taking over this situation and she didn't know what to do. And then they were moaning that she was traumatised over it. And I was like, that's when midwives earn their money. They don't earn their money on a daily basis, going in, churning out the same information to women day after day after day, doing blood pressures here, there, and everywhere. You earn your shitting money when the shit hits the fan and you know what to do and you're calm and you're effective and you do what you need to do in that moment.
Yeah, that's not what I've seen, unfortunately, in emergency situations with midwives. In fact, it's not what I've seen when there's no emergency situation either. I see like harassment, coercion to tick boxes that's distressing women and making them stressed and making a situation more dangerous. That's what I see over and over and over again when I have midwives there. It's like pressuring to listen into a baby when a woman said, no, not right now. We need to listen in. No, not right now. Yeah. Oh, but it's really important because we haven't listened to the baby for 5 minutes and we need to listen to them. Not right now. Yeah. And then she went to go again. And I said, you need to stop. She's told you no 3 times. You are just coercing her now. You just document that she said no, and that will cover you for whatever you're worried about. Stop harassing her. You're stopping me doing my job. Yeah, I'm framed as that doula. And I'm like, your job is not to coerce a woman into compliance. Your job is to offer what it says under your guidance. And if she declines it, to document that. You are meant to be with woman, not coerce a woman into doing what you want. She went out to the kitchen to bitch to her friend. And I know I've got a reputation with that home birth, that area now, but I don't really care, because that's not midwifery. That's not what midwifery should be. It's totally out of order. And then they were shouting at her to push, and they made the situation far more dangerous than if they had been calm and quiet. That's what midwifery is. You're right. And it's not what I see. It's not what I see the vast majority of the time. I can count on one hand the number of true midwives that I have worked with in the last 20 years. And I'm really sad to say that. Obviously, I know a lot of true midwives through getting to know lovely people like you over social media. But the vast majority of people that I have worked with are tick boxing. They're not with the woman at all. Their priority is not what the woman wants. They're trying to get her to do things that helps them to feel safer. And it makes it so dangerous. And in my experience, it is safer not to have midwives there. We see it in free birth studies that are coming out now, that people have better outcomes when they don't have registered professionals there. And it's because of this disruption the whole time. This let me listen in, let me stick my fingers up your vagina. We need to check this, we need to do this, asking questions, when actually a woman just needs quiet, calm, loving support and hands that know what to do if there is an issue, if there is a problem. And even then, people don't.
They've been educated to make it about them and not about the woman. And it is about the woman, not about the midwife. And that's all ego then that comes in, isn't it? I'm here. I'm here to save you.
Yeah, and I see that with when you see, and I've seen quite experienced midwives, well-known midwives who are on social media. Like, if I'm, for example, calling out some behaviour that I've seen, like I dress up in wigs and do a sketch of something that I've seen and try to explain how women can say things to get their consent, get how consent should look properly, how women should be treated, how they shouldn't be treated, what you can say in a situation if you're feeling coerced into something. And I got all this out of butthurt, you're just, I know you don't mean to, but you're sort of making out, you're making women scared of midwives. You're doing da, 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 da. It's not all midwives. And I'm like, I'm not the person that's doing this to women. No. And if you are a midwife, you wouldn't be going, not all midwives. You'd be going, any midwife doing this is too many.
Yeah.
We need to all work together to stop this happening. Not having a go at the people calling it out, saying you're going to scare women. I'm not scaring women. What's being done to women is scaring women. Women are not stupid. They know that it's not all midwives that behave that way. But from the recent birth rights study that we have that have come out about coercion in maternity care, it is the vast majority of midwives that are doing it. And in my experience of hundreds of midwives that I've worked with, it is the vast majority of them doing it. And it makes me incredibly sad to say that, because midwifery is a magical profession. It is literally the core of safety, of building of human souls, of bigging up of women, of celebrating female power. And it has been reduced now to belittling women, to coercing them to do what medical safety guides, even though that's safety, is not evidence-based.
Oh, it breaks my heart. I mean, midwifery was a beautiful profession. I gave up my pin because I couldn't abide what was happening anymore under the guise of this umbrella of midwifery. And now I say to women, I've been into a few hospitals with women, and it's interesting watching midwives who, when you're there, supporting the women, how they don't know where their role is and they don't know how to fit in because they're so used to having to listen in every 15 minutes. And if they can't do that task, they don't know what to do with themselves because their habit is listen in, go back to the computer, document something. By the time they've done that, it's time to listen in again. So it fills up this vacuum of time. And
So
it's
they're just there
interesting,
aggressively
like,
typing about that doula. Doula.
God, I'd love to know what they say about me. But I always empower women with the sentence when we go in. It's like, when you don't want that level of care that they're going to provide, you say to them, I'm an intelligent woman and I've heard about all the care offerings that you're offering that will reassure you. When I want that reassurance, I'll ask for it. And it works a treat. Because suddenly it's taken this power back to a woman.
Yes, I'm all for that.
Yeah,
All for
but it
that.
is so interesting watching midwives then when they don't know what to do with themselves. I'm hoping that in those experiences that they've witnessed the power of being with a woman, and that the next birth that they go to, they can be with the woman and wholeheartedly step into that power of not being frightened by any of this journey. Because when that woman looks at you and says the baby's coming, or I need to do something, this doesn't feel right, you're there and responding in that way exactly that's needed, whether it's continuing to hold the space because the woman feels empowered enough to be doing what she's doing, or taking the action that's needed because the woman has said, this doesn't feel right. I love that. It really lights me up. And I did it as a midwife, but it did get so much harder and harder. I had midwives saying, you're lucky you are. Well, you know, or what was the other one? Got called a maverick by a head of midwifery. You're just a maverick, yeah. She wrote in a statement.
A maverick.
A maverick, yeah. She wrote to the NMC saying I was a maverick.
Oh, right, okay. You're giving that woman-centred care. Such a maverick.
Well, I wrote to the NMC asking them, was it okay for a head of midwifery to call somebody names? Was that part of conducive working environment, really? How does that work? You couldn't make this shit up, could you, if you tried?
No, that's the thing. It's really funny. You know, everything I've ever said in my videos where the characters say it's all things I've heard, all things I've seen said to women. You know, I couldn't make it up more crazy than the reality that I've just watched played out in front of my eyes.
I know. It's mad, isn't it? It's mad. Really is crazy. All you can do is keep doing what you're doing. And I love what you do. I love what you and Kemi do together. I love the fact that there's a whole army and more so coming forward of people, women that have kind of suddenly gone, do you know what? This isn't right. What's going on here? And something needs to be done about it. Yeah. And it does fill my heart with hope, having it been broken, because I was absolutely broken when I stepped away from that, thinking I became a midwife to give birth back to women because that's what my midwife had done for me. I'd had one of my pregnancies had been completely robbed from me, and it was my midwife who said, do what feels right for you, whatever it is, it's your right to do what and so that's why I became a midwife. She so inspired me, and that's what I did throughout my career. But my light was getting dampened, and sad that I had to step away from the profession to carry on doing what I'm doing. But I do feel joy again in what I'm doing, being with women.
Yeah, and I think more people are waking up and realizing and choosing a different path, and that is very inspiring.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
little ripples in the pond, will keep spreading out. I was saying to Kemi the other day, actually, that I think that we're making the right ripples. We got some really lovely messages from people who'd listened to the podcast, and it completely changed their birth experience, and just given them the confidence to do what they felt they knew was right all along, but no one had been saying that it was their choice, that they could do what they wanted, and just given them that confidence. And it was really wonderful. And I'd also annoyed some people online about, some medical professionals online by pointing something out that they got all like uppity about. And I just said to Kemi, well, we're making the right ripples. We're making the ripples that are annoying the right people and making the ripples that are helping the right people. So, got to keep on keeping on.
Yeah, definitely. You've got to keep doing what you're doing. And it's so inspirational for me to be able to connect with people like you and Kemi, because it is quite a lonely world out there, isn't it? When you're doing what you're doing, it can be. You can kind of get lost inside your.
Yeah, because you sometimes feel like you're mad. You do sometimes feel like you're mad because you're the only person that's saying, have you looked at the statistics that are being used to threaten you? Have you looked at the other side of them, or have you thought about them the other way around? And do you realize that actually what they're telling you is really, really safe isn't really, really safe? And what you're thinking, your intuition, your feeling is telling you is safe is actually what's safer. It's actually what's shown in the evidence. And you start to feel a bit mad when you are, you're doing that for couples all the time, and all they're hearing is the other, the other opinions that are often just that, opinions rather than evidence-based information. And I say that it's so important for birth workers to have people that they can connect to, that they can debrief with, that people that understand what it's like to be trying to hold that space against the tide, and often of quite strong hatred, for whatever reason that is, be it that we are not regulated, and so therefore people feel upset about that it's not regulated, that they feel upset that they've spent all this time and money to do a degree, and somebody seems to know more about something than they do, even though they've got a degree, and they don't like that and they get offended by it. I spend hours, days every week reading research papers and learning to deepen my understanding. That's why I have it. It's not I've just make stuff up, or it is through hard work that I do that. But people don't know that, they don't realize that, and so there can be an envy thing there. But I think having support is so important, and part of the stuff that Kemi and I have organised a gathering of birth workers. It's much the same arrangement. I organise the gathering, and Kemi comes and bees Kemi, and that's how we do all our things. The one this year is coming up on between the 5th and the 7th of June, so we've got just a little weekend gathering. So if you're free, you should come along. I'll make some lovely food for everybody, and we'll just sit and hang out and chat about birth and learn from each other and support each other and have a good old rant and put the worlds to right. And it's a really lovely weekend. We did it last year and it was beautiful, and we're going to do it again.
I do know I've got a mum due, but she's,
me too.
Well, she's due, but she's just at 34 weeks. Her waters have just broke. I'm going to see her to talk to her. She's not gone into labour or done anything, so obviously now they'll conservatively manage it. So I'm going to go up and see her about how this conservative management is going to look, because according to them, they want to now induce her at 37 weeks because she's prolonged rupture membranes.
Yeah, and suddenly at that miraculous made-up date, you have to be induced. Yeah.
So there's I'm going to go up and see her, I think, next week. Even if I just shoot up for a little bit, it'd be cool.
Yeah,
just to kind of. I'm also holding circles here once a month in my new lovely studio. Have you seen the studio? Look.
No, let's see. Oh, it's beautiful!
Yay! Oh. Yeah. So so if ever you're down this end on your little travel, please come and see me.
I'll come visit you. Yeah, I will. I am coming down. Not sure how close I will be to you, about coming down to stay probably with my oldest friend in the summer sometime, somewhere, but I'm not actually somewhere in Devon. I'm not sure how close it is to you. Somewhere in Devon. I can't remember where
well, if it's somewhere in Devon, I'll find you.
Yeah, I might come down on the train rather than by car. So the one thing is that I might not be very mobile, but I'll let you know.
Yeah, I can come and find you though. I'm happy. Cool. That's the one thing we're good at, is travelling a little bit, isn't it? We don't mind a few miles.
And you'll love my friend as well. She's brilliant. She's a brilliant person. She's very interesting to talk to.
Yeah, I'd love to come and see you. Or if you guys want to come and have a night in Torquay, sunny Torbados.
Maybe we should do a biomechanics. I should come and teach my biomechanics at your studio. We should get some local birth workers and do a biomechanics course.
That would be amazing. Yeah. Maybe that's something we could organise. That would be really good.
Yeah, I'm up for
Loads of people would be up for that. I was looking at, somebody was saying about their baby was having some feeding issues, and I saw something online about a Rebola.
Oh yeah, was that Rachel? Gorgeous Rachel.
Putting the baby in and doing this to kind of realign the...
Yeah, it helps them go through the rotation.
Yeah.
And unwind fascial stuff.
So I've sent her the little video to have a look at. I do refer people to craniopathy as well, because I think that's a really great thing. Naturally, if you get a baby and hold the baby in your hand, naturally, you will kind of move them into certain gentle ways. I think you can feel the stiffness in certain places, can't you?
Yeah.
Apparently we all have to be qualified and all that to care for our babies now.
Yeah, even if you hold them in the bath and just let them move around, they often do unwinding movements to help with torsions that have happened. You just gently hold the head and let them move around in the water of the body. Yeah.
I do say that to mums. I do that a lot with mums that have had quite traumatic births. I would say, right, let's do a rebirth, get in your bath, fill it up, get your baby in there, just spend some time in the bath with your baby and watch them. And then you can see how they work as they go back into fetal positions and then start unfolding in this water quite naturally. It's quite amazing to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very emotional thing, isn't it? It's such a good thing to do, and you can scoop the baby up and have a feed, and yeah, brilliant.
Well, that has been a beautiful hour and a half. How quick did that go?
Yeah, we could talk the hind legs of a donkey.
That's quite true. I think anything to do with birth, and we're like,
yeah, it's so true. So true.
I bet you've got another appointment to go to as well, haven't you?
Well, no, I haven't got too much on at the moment. I'm just planning the menu and stuff for the gathering of food that I need to make, and I'm on call for another remote client and 3 in-person people.
Amazing.
So I'm just trying to not do too much so that if I get called out consecutively, I'm not too exhausted.
Yeah. Are you based around London area then, are you? Or a bit
no, at the moment I am actually up near Birmingham, and so I've got a client just to the northeast of Birmingham. Then I've got one in Derby. I also have one down in Oxfordshire, but I'm doing that shared care with another doula. So we'll see who works out to go to that one. It'll be a bit of a long drive if I'm supporting that one.
Yeah.
And the other person I'm looking after is a remote free birth. So
amazing. Keep doing what you're doing though, Shellie. You're doing an amazing job, and I really appreciate all the info and things that you share, because it just reassures me, reminds me, fills my cup. It does lots of lovely things, and I can't thank you enough for everything you do. And if there's anything I can do in return for you, just give us the nod and I'll be there. I'll do it. Amazingly.
Oh, bless you. Well, we'll probably definitely have you back on the podcast again. We loved your episodes where we had you, so we'll steal you back for another chat.
Yeah, do it. I've got some pregnancy affirmation cards that I've made. I'll send you a pack if you drop me your...
Oh, beautiful.
However I can get them to you.
Yeah, I use various friends dotted around the country as my postal service.
Send me an address and I'll send you a pack. And
that's so kind of you. Thank you.
Have you seen me using them online?
No, I don't think I have. I'm very bad with social media, actually. I find it quite difficult to be on social media and see what's happening, especially as I've got lots of birthday accounts and just see over and over again the troubles that people are going through and things. So I tend to just make content, put it on. I'll respond to comments, but I don't tend to sort of look at a lot of stuff. I find I just get a little bit down if I'm if I'm scrolling on social media. I only really scroll comedy. If I look for comedy reels and try and get the algorithm just to show me comedy. Have you ever seen the Organic Mum on Instagram. It's
Probably.
a guy that dresses up with glasses. He's got long hair, and I think he's either Australian or New Zealand, and it's so funny. It just absolutely cracks me up. If you ever need a laugh, I highly recommend going to watch that. Right, there's one he was smudging over his dog this morning and tuning in to how his dog was feeling. Oh, it was so good. It's all the airy fairy things that we all do. Just taking the mickey. It's brilliant. Really good.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, I'll send you a pack of cards and then you can smudge over them.
Oh, thank you. Get the Palo Santo out.
I made a pack like 25 years ago, and then my daughter, when she was pregnant, went, you need to update them. So I've done a modern, more updated version, and now I'm in the process of doing the cards and the book in a more modern card and book way, because she said people want just quick cards, Mum. So I've done the quick cards. I'll send you those, and then when I get the next ones printed, I'll send you a pack of those as well.
Oh,
I love them. They're just nice. I pull them occasionally. I still relate them to my own life. Do you know, I pull them, and then I'll read a card, and then I'll try and relate it into people's pregnancies. But quite often it works in my own life too.
Yeah. Just get the card you need.
Yeah, you do. Anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really have loved the way our conversations flowed. You're an absolute star, and I can't wait to give you a squeeze in real life.
Yeah, I'll see you soon, hopefully. Hopefully see you at the gathering.
Yeah, definitely. Lots to love, Shellie. Thank you so much. Speak to you soon.
Bye, Tess.
Take care.